how the devil are you? Wow, what a 10 days, 2 weeks it's been since I last spoke to you. Here I am again, walking down by the river on my normal trek. I haven't been for a walk for 10 days at least. Not a long one like this anyway, or it used to be short, 4 or 5k, 4 or 5 miles. It used to be a short walk for me, but I haven't been on anything recently. So here I am. And one thing that strikes me as I walk down here is, why the bloody hell am I out on a Sunday when everyone comes out on a Sunday? Just can't get a moment's peace. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. So let's get into the thing. So why have I not made a video for 10 days? Well, basically because I've been looking after my mum. After the COVID with no symptoms things that I told you about. See what I mean? Who goes jogging with somebody and talks to them at the same time? When is that a good time to do the gossip catch up? I'll do my best. Right, let's plough on. So yeah, my mum supposedly tested positive for COVID twice. You know all this already, and then she didn't have any symptoms. But it was all at the same time as COVID restrictions and lockdown being in place. My dad died in the previous month, some weeks beforehand, and the funeral then a month later, and all the stresses and strains that involved. For reasons that you can probably read between the lines from my other videos. Not necessarily because we're devastated by the loss of a loved one. So there we go. And probably who's to know which came first? Be nice if I could get my words out right. Who is to say which came first? My mum's stress and anxiety about the whole event, or what's happened for the last 10 days, which is she got some kind of pneumonia, for which she was given strong antibiotics. Family got there quick, thanks to her message, and I've been staying at my mum's for the last 10 or so days, looking after her to make sure that she gets better. Love you, Mum. Glad you're much better now, and let's make this a good year if we can, eh? So there we go. What does that lead to today's topic then? Well, it kind of started me thinking about my mum's choices now, because basically the house that they're in was chosen by my dad, as were all the others. All the furnishings, fittings and furnishings, and how the garden looks were chosen by my dad. For one reason or another, his taint is on the property where she now lives, and although she's been doing her best, and we've been trying to help her to make it as homely as possible in the last few months, and she's been turfing out old stuff that she doesn't want, that wasn't hers, and generally rearranging the furnishings and the furniture, and having a big sort out basically, so that she can remove every morsel of him from her life and start again. So that's a big turning point, and hopefully this continues. One thing that's come out of that, of course, is the fact that possibility is that she could actually move again, although she thought this move to this house, installing standard stair lift and various other modifications, bathroom modifications and such and such. They presumed it was going to be their last move, and it looks like my mum could be moving again. Why? Well, for many reasons, which I've highlighted already. The main one being that it's a fresh start for her. She can then choose the place, she can choose the colours, she can choose the decoration. It's all her. It's all her decision making. that then goes to deciding where she lives, what the house looks like, and what kind of accommodation it is, and it's a completely fresh start, so she can put her mark on the place and settle down and start a new life for herself, which is something she really needs to do. Make the most of, as we all do, make the most of the time that we've got. And there we go. So this waffle that's going on, and what's the actual point that I was coming to? Well, the decisions that she's got to make now. Let's just take her for a start. She's got some big decisions to make. She's mid-70s. Does she? She's disabled in the fact that she can't walk very far without assistance. She pretty much relies on people pushing her in a wheelchair and taxis. She can walk, but she can't jog down the street to the shop. So lots of factors are involved. Does she go for a bungalow or a house? Well, at the moment they have a house, she has a house with a standard stair lift that they had put in so that they could get up and down stairs. Fine, that works, I guess. But if you have to go and answer the door quickly, then that's not so good. If it's an important call, or someone needs to come and help you because you've tripped in the bath or shower or something like that, and you're not near the front door. Bungalow perhaps would be better. Does she go for warden service or not? There's lots of different varieties, I imagine, of warden type accommodation that's serviced by wardens where they're on call 24/7. I imagine that there's different variations of that, and that there was, from my time as an ambulance driver, I do remember that there were certainly council facilities in place for that sort of thing. The range of different accommodation, but mostly bungalow complexes, 1 or 2 bed bungalow complexes, mostly for single elderly people rather than couples, although there were some couple places too. So that's another choice. Upstairs or downstairs or just one floor, warden or not. And then you've got to think about quality of life. So what do you want to actually do in your life? My mum's into crafting and making things, and she likes socialising and being parts of clubs and things like that. So she needs to be close to those, or at least a reasonable taxi ride away from that sort of stuff. Perhaps even some of these warden places have that kind of facility provided or available, or the bungalow complexes have organised events, dancing and sports, not sports as in 100 metres racing, but gentle sport and fitness clubs and things like that. So that's another thing. Does my mum want to be in a small village in the middle of nowhere, a good 10, 15, 20 minutes away from anything like that? Or would she prefer to be in a larger town, city obviously too, but a larger town perhaps, where those things are more readily available and cheaper to get to? And she could possibly even use some kind of electric wheelchair or walk herself with a stroller and attend these things. Of course, these sort of things do occur in the smaller, more remote villages. Lincolnshire is where they live, so in Lincolnshire it's a very sparsely populated, in fact probably the most sparsely populated English county. So yeah, that's another choice. The smaller villages are going to provide less in terms of entertainment, for want of a better word, and and ease of access to that entertainment. So there's the choices, and then you got to think about price. You know, do you go for similar size, or do you go for 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed? There's lots of bungalows, for example, that do have all range of sizes of bedroom sizes, from posh to just pretty standard. And where she lives, there seems to be quite a range of those things. But the money comes into it. You know, you can't. She's not going to get a job and a mortgage at this time and go bigger. So downsizing perhaps is one of the options there. And that's just thinking about buying. But when it comes to renting, that's another possibility. You know, that she could rent, sell the house that she's got and just rent a place. You generally pay more for renting than you do for a mortgage, of course, because the landlord has to take his cut. But you know, it's not that big a difference that it's not feasible. So lots of things to consider. Me personally, after having spent 10 days with my mum in Lincolnshire, yeah, it's nicer. There's lots of countryside. It's very flat generally, but I live in the city. I live in pretty much the city centre and of Manchester. I couldn't live in Lincolnshire. I've lived in lots of places in the UK. Nowhere abroad yet, although I'm not going to rule that out. It might be nice to retire, for example, to somewhere like Spain or Italy or France, or even the Czech Republic, or somewhere beautiful like that. But they're all considerations for the future. And in the meantime, it's made me think about what I want from life and where I live. And I have lived in lots of places, lots of different kinds of places around the UK. And I do, as much as I moan about Manchester, I do like living here. I like living bang smack in the middle of a city, with all that provides, the bustle, the excitement, the buzz, the nightlife, if you're into that. Not so much for me these days, but pubs, restaurants, the variety of food available, the length of time, the length of time during the day that things are open, the number of days per week that things are open, and the variety of those things. Living in a city with a pretty good transport network, Manchester is very adequately provided with train services, train connections all over the UK. A pretty good tram service that covers now large zones of the city. Buses, which I don't use so often, but again a large network of buses, and Manchester Airport nearby, which, you know, when we're not during stupid COVID restrictions, can take you anywhere in the world pretty much, sometimes with a stop off in London. So I love living in a city. I love being close to all of that, and I, as much as there are appeals to living in a more rural countryside environment, I don't think it's for me, certainly not at this time of my life. Although it's nice to visit those places. It's nice to go and relax in the countryside and you know, sit outside in the sleepy village in the pub garden, having a pint of ale, and everything. The pace of life is much slower, etc., etc. We all know the pros and cons that people talk about living in the city or the countryside, and I've done all of that, and I've experienced both sides of all the arguments there. I've worked on several farms. One of them actually happened to be the other side of the River Thames in Reading. So I had a city close by, but was actually in the middle of the countryside and felt very remote. And the second one was in deepest rural Essex, arable farmland. Why is it always this stupid road? Eh? Why? Yeah, so where was I? I was tripping all over my feet, that's what I was doing. So, God, the canals are busy today, really annoying. I know it's Sunday, and I moaned about this before. Everyone comes out walking on the canals on a Sunday, walking, cycling, jogging, does my bloody head in. All I want to get out is for a nice peaceful walk. Listen to me moaning like an old git. Right, do you know what I need? I need a canoe. That's what I need, a nice canoe. Got my own place. Struggle holding the camera, probably, but a canoe with a motor, that's what I need. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, farm in Reading, farm in Essex in the middle of nowhere. That literally was in the middle of nowhere. The farmhouse itself was actually completely in the middle of nowhere. There was a local village, more of a hamlet really. There were local pubs that were probably, most of them were struggling to stay open, in fairness. But that was remote, you know. If I wanted to go to a local shop or a local pub, then they were at least a good 1.5 to 2 miles away, and reduced opening hours as well. You know, you had to time it. Transport was almost necessary if you wanted to get a weekly shopping or anything like that. You either got good at walking or got a taxi or had your own car. So there we go. So that's one end of the scale. As I said, I now live in the city centre. I've lived in various towns down south in Essex, and remote parts of towns and in the town centre. I've lived in bungalows and detached houses. I now live in a apartment block of flats, as we call it in England. I've lived on farms. I've everything, every type of house, apart from perhaps a mansion, I've lived in. Although, to be fair, even then, the first farm that I worked on was 15th century, huge 15th century farmhouse. And you know, maybe even that. There we go. That's the types of places that I've lived, the types of environments that I've lived in. I've lived up north, down south, all different sizes of accommodation, all different qualities of accommodation, all different parts of the UK, and if I made a choice now, so what I've done, I suppose, basically in the last few days is try to put myself in the shoes of a mid-70-year-old and think about the choices that I would make. Certainly, I'm very lucky because, as I mentioned before, in my flat that I'm in, a large 2-bedroom flat, only me living there, close proximity to the city centre of Manchester, and all the transport and the entertainment and things to do and hospitals, and you know, the whole infrastructure is there should I need it. If I was 74, 75, nothing would change. It would all still be available to me. There's a lift to help me get downstairs, there's taxis, there's wheelchairs that you can hire for free from the shopping centre. All of that is in place. If I was that age and not so able to get around, I could easily still do that if I'm still in my flat in 20-30 years time. But if the question is, if I had a choice, would I still be there? I suppose ideally, and maybe a lot of people think the same, you'd like to retire to somewhere like the Lake District, you know, some rolling hills or mountains as you look out your kitchen window, with a babbling river running past and sheep in the field opposite, and a much slower pace of life. You know, a local village, everyone knows each other, local pub, local amenities, very, very restricted range in the local shops. That you know, does have an appeal. Another personal thing that I'd really like is to have enough money to be able to buy a little cottage in a similar kind of place, but near the coast. You know, being able to see the beach out of your window in your twilight years would be an amazing thing, in my opinion. Strolling along the beach and God, is it Family Day Out or something? National Family Day Out. Can't believe how many people are just rolling up and down this fucking canal path like it's the town centre will be dead. Don't go to the shops, stay at home. You know, COVID restrictions, and yet what do? They all come down here. I'm trying to get a peaceful video made. Anyway, I feel like I'm on a 5-minute cooldown, you know, like on a video game. Your special ability has a 5-minute cooldown. My special ability is to moan like an old bastard. And well, you know, here I am, cheerful again now. So got 5 minutes, guys, before the next outburst. Right, so living by the coast, wouldn't that be amazing? Especially if there's some cliffs or a bit of mountainage going on. Ideal world, maybe some better weather. Cornwall's looking good, isn't it? Cornwall and Devon are certainly looking appealing, or than the very northeast coast up near Scarborough or Robin Hood's Bay, places like that. But you know, in England at least, these places are a premium to get exactly what you want. Decent bungalow, nice village, good fish and chip shop by the sea, better weather. You know, when you take all the factors that your wishes into consideration, you're either looking at a lot of money or totally unfeasible. So there we go. What else? Where was I going to with that? Can you remind me? Yeah, so I was talking about myself as usual. Hi. and how the choices related to where you live, where you choose to live at various stages of your life, and also where you end up living. And nobody knows when they're gonna go. I might trip like I did just now and end up in this canal and drown from toxification of the poisonous chemicals in there from the industry. Who knows? You know, who knows when we're gonna go? Some people in my family have gone far earlier than they should have done, and perhaps some far later than they should have done. But nobody knows when that's going to be. So what can you do? You just need to base your opinions and your decisions about where to live and what kind of place, building, town, city, environment you want to live in. You've got to base those on your current circumstances and your current wishes. You can't be planning too far into the future. I'm not going to move into a bungalow now in anticipation that maybe tomorrow or maybe in 20 or 30 years time I'll need one. However, when you get to your later years, and it can be quite sudden that you've got to make those decisions. You know, it's not going to be you're not going to be fit and healthy perhaps, and able to pack everything up, put it in boxes, hire a van, drive it to the next place, unpack it all. You know, that kind of stuff is difficult. You need to rely on friends and family and outside help for that, in order to move at a later stage of life. So perhaps a little bit of preempting there is a good thing, and that's where we are right now with my mum, trying to help her to enjoy the rest of her life in a place that she's chosen, that's for her, that's the ideal for her, or as near as you can get to ideal, with all the other factors we've talked about taken into consideration, and that's going to be difficult. Personally, I think buying is probably the last resort because of all the stresses and strains involved, the financial loss, or the financial problems that can arise from the place that you want is always dearer than what you've got, or going down, reducing the money that you spend on the place, and then ending up in what turns out later to be a dodgy area or too far from the town or stuff like that. So renting, probably Warden, probably close to a major conurbation, more than likely, and that's where we're at, and it's going to be a journey, and I hope she's looking forward to it. I think she is looking forward to this journey, this venture out into her own, and finding and then designing her own place and making it her own inside, with all the fixtures and fittings how she wants them. And watch this space.